Welcome to the Corporate to Coach podcast. I'm Pamela, a former corporate professional turned certified life and business coach and mentor. If you're ready to sign clients, grow your soul-led coaching business, and shed the employee identity so you can step fully into business ownership, you're in the right place. Let's begin. Hello, welcome back to the podcast. So I wanted to talk today about taking quitting off the table and what that looks like and all the variations of that I've seen over my time. Now, I'm a big believer in being a quitter. So that might seem a little bit counterintuitive to what the title has to say. So it's more like this is like a caveat that I have in the small print that I actually want to highlight loud and clear before we dive into this episode, because if you've specifically tapped into this episode because the title caught your attention, then there is some resonance there with you. And maybe it's something that you've considered. Maybe it's something that you're in right now. Maybe it's just something that you ask yourself, like, is this for me? Can I actually do this? Is this even possible? Is this a pipe dream? Is this ever going to happen for me? Will I ever get there? And maybe you've even entertained really like tangible, I should quit. I'm not cut out for this. I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to be on social media. I don't want to have to build a business. I don't want to have to do the marketing and selling, and I don't want to have to figure this out. And why does coaching cost so much? And like any of that kind of thread that happens as a result of being in quitter energy. So the small print and the caveat is actually that I'm a massive quitter. That didn't resonate in my chest as I said that. I believe in quitting. That was more true. I believe in quitting. I am a huge advocate for knowing when the fuck to get out of the room. Leave the party if you're done. I am that person at a party who will exit without saying goodbye when I'm over it. I've got a bit better, to be fair, in my 30s. In my 20s, I would just ghost. I would do that on dates. I would do that at a party. I would do that in the club. And interestingly, even day to day, when I was practicing putting my boundaries in place at the day job when I had one, I used to be that person that would be sat there until like 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock. To be honest, I was just avoiding life and working hard and then wondering why I was burning out. And well, most of you know the story of why I became a life coach. So when I started putting boundaries in place, for me, like quitting the day when I was done, allowing like 6 to be my deadline became my deadline. And so from the energy of like knowing when the fuck to leave, I think it's a great thing to know when to quit. And also it's about like, this links very closely to boundaries. I'm not going to go into the boundaries aspect of it, but you know, when I think about being in relationships that don't serve you, when you think about, I don't know, ordering food from a restaurant and it isn't correct, or it doesn't taste good, or the order is missing something, or it's burnt, I have no qualms with putting my boundaries in place and being like, this isn't satisfactory. Like, I am unavailable for what you are offering. I quit this. So it's slightly different energy, right? So quitting isn't a bad thing. That's the point. Quitting isn't a bad thing. That being said, and this is the real message of this episode, what happens when you take quitting off the table when it comes to coaching and building the business that you deeply desire? When I started my Thrive Group program at the beginning of this year, I ended up doing a embodiment session to kick off the entire container. When you join, don't worry, you'll have access to all the replays. You can definitely watch that call. And one of the big things that I spoke about on that session was really connecting to where desire comes from. What do you want? And where does that come from? And it was a little bit of a philosophical call, but I had them connect to the truth and the frequency of the truth that has brought them to this calling. Let me say that again. I had them connect to the frequency of the truth that brought them to this calling of being sovereign to yourself, to having the time freedom that you deeply desire, to having the financial freedom that you know that you are capable of, to be able to create the impact, the influence, to do the kind of good in this world that you know the world deeply needs. That is a soul calling. There is a reason you're on this path. But when you get wrapped up in thoughts of the mind, when you are dysregulated, when you are not curating and healing and creating safety in your body, when you are not practicing courage, meeting your edges, expanding what is available to you, doing the uncomfortable thing, allowing yourself to be visible, allowing yourself to be seen, allowing yourself to claim what you want to go for, and you allow the fear of that to become bigger than the desire of that, it can only end in one direction. And it ends in you quitting something when you don't really want to. This is a really important discussion to be had. There is nothing wrong with recognizing when the journey of being a business owner actually isn't for you. I've seen it happen. I've had a client go through that. She loved coaching. She loved what it does for her, but the business side, until she took it seriously, until we actually started challenging everything that she thinks business is and actually having a big learning curve and recognizing what real business is and what it's going to require of her, she made an empowered decision to stay in her corporate role. And she's since had promotions. She still does public speaking. She gets to coach in a corporate setting. She brings the entrepreneur spirit into her career, and she's very, very comfortable having that coaching aspect in her life, but not building a business. This is a bit of a wake-up call. Every single time that you entertain quitting that are on the pathway to that lead to that is what you're going to receive. When you take quitting off the table and thereby take the excuses, take the victim, take the indulgences off the table and start taking radical responsibility for the incredible opportunity that you are creating for yourself, that is when things start to change. That being said, there are some skills that you may not currently have that you need to develop and you need to acquire in order to support you to stay the path. And in order to support you to lovingly be able to recognize when you are in an ego state, in a dysregulated state, in a victim state, and to actually hold yourself to account and give yourself the gift of learning the tools, learning how to regulate yourself, learning how to come back to trust, and learning the business skill of knowing how to evaluate effectively what is actually going on in your business, developing the CEO skill sets to know exactly what is missing or not in your business so that you actually have everything you need in order to build a business. What I have found so empowering and so interesting to observe in myself as someone who never entertained quitting my coaching business, but regularly entertained in the first 2, even arguably 2.5 years of my business. Oh, why isn't it working yet? Why am I not there yet? Am I cut out for this? Maybe I'm just not capable of it. Maybe it was just a pipe dream. I know these thoughts intimately because I have experienced all of them. So when I see it in my clients, it doesn't scare me at all. But I recognize immediately that there is a big gap that we need to fill. Because when you fill it either with the ability to self-regulate or, be regulated with the support of a coach, but with the intention of you learning how to actually self-regulate, when you heal the deeper stuff that does need to be addressed, and I think everybody has a place for that, but also healing is a never ending journey. So, get to the core stuff, get it done. But then sometimes we just need to level the fuck up, and empower ourselves over and over again. There's nothing wrong with that. That's the journey that we are on. Then there is the business skill set of having your fundamentals in place. I used to feel very disconnected from the vision of my business because I constantly felt like something was missing. You know what? It was. There were things missing in my business. I didn't know how to do messaging until I learned and taught myself. I didn't know how to price, truly stood in the embodiment of knowing how to price effectively. I didn't know how to sell without pressure, without tactics, without feeling like an asshole when I was selling until I embodied the kind of saleswoman that I know that I can be by holding people to the highest integrity within myself first. And that exudes in the way that I sell to other people. Then I mentioned earlier, knowing how to evaluate, knowing how to troubleshoot. What's interesting is when you learn those skill sets, what happens next? And this is really, really good. When you forget who the fuck you are, when you have those moments of, oh my God, how long is it going to take? When am I going to get there? Why am I not there yet? And you end up in that little comparison spiral, even just with the vision, let alone other people, you remember that you have everything you need to be able to move forward. It stops becoming a genuine question because you know better than that. Being a victim to it is no longer substantiated because you don't know and you've got gaps. Fill the gaps. If you want to be a business owner, own it. Give yourself permission to learn what you need to learn when it comes to building a business. They don't teach you that part in certification. And I have to admit, I was pretty pissed off when I realized that because they definitely sold to me that there was a business component. What they actually sold, in all honesty, was really just start to market yourself and kind of advertise yourself and just start, getting some kind of online presence going. They weren't teaching core business fundamentals that apply no matter what your platform is, no matter what your offer, no matter what your price. When you learn those things and you go from zero to growth phase and then eventually to scaling phase, when you have the fundamentals in place, that allows you to scale quicker because you're not really learning a new skill set. You're just thinking about the same skill set in a different way. Take quitting off the table. I challenge you, never entertain it. But for level 2.0 of taking quitting off the table, because to be honest, there's probably only about 10% of you, actually probably less, I'd say 5% of you that ever truly ever think to yourself, maybe I should quit this. For most of you, I want you to start tuning in to the energy of quitting. Where does this thought lead me to? If I keep thinking these things, is it ever going to happen for me? Am I ever going to get there? Why is it taking so long? How long is it going to take? Why am I not there yet? If you follow those trains of thought all the way through and keep asking yourself, if I keep thinking this way, where is this going to end? If I persist in this, where does this end? It ends in you quitting. So start recognizing the thoughts where you are entertaining quitter energy. And then I challenge you to ask yourself, is this a matter of remembering who the fuck I am because I've done the healing work? Or do I need to go and do some deeper healing work here? Is this something big that this is hitting up against? No judgment. Fuck, I had to go through it. Go get it done. Hire a one-to-one coach. Hire me. I'll take you through that. But it might be that I'm a life and business coach. It might be that it's deeper. It might be therapy for you, whatever. Like, get it done. If you know it's there for you, give yourself the permission of healing and the gift of healing. For most of you, because most of my audience have already done that work because you found coaching for a reason. So you've already identified the core limiting beliefs that you have. What's next is seeing all the ways that all the little roots of those limiting beliefs are actually still infiltrating your business. That's when it comes to just good old fashioned daily regulation, safety in your nervous system, connection to your inner child, seeing where you're playing small and leveling the fuck up over and over and over again. And then for many of you, especially if you are less than 50K revenue all time in your coaching business, selling one-to-one coaching, it is highly likely that the truth is that there is actually just some skill sets that you are missing. You feel like your offer isn't complete because you're not fully considering everything that actually goes into an offer. You're still chasing shit like niches and pillars, hoping that will give you the answer. And it isn't, hence why you're not selling. You're showing up online, but you're barely starting to use your voice. You're barely starting to capture the depth of what you have to say. The depth you're giving in your marketing and selling isn't touching the kind of depth that I know that you reach in your coaching sessions. If you know that too, and especially, my God, if you're still doing like sharing tips, not that sharing tips in and of itself is a bad thing. I might do an episode on that another day, but sharing tips, sharing quotes, relying very heavily on ChatGPT. Again, side note, I'm not against it, but it takes the same amount of fucking time to create a post in ChatGPT as it does to your brain. Like, seriously. Time yourself next time, okay? Prove me right here. I proved myself right with that too many times. And as curious as I am, I always just come back to my own words. It's kind of funny, but hey, we've got to experiment with these things, and I think it has a place, but it isn't everything. So especially if you don't know how to storytell, if you know you're being coachy and fluffy, like these skill sets, come and learn them. If being on a consult is like, oh my God, what if someone actually tells me it's too expensive? What if someone tells me I have to go speak to their husband? What if they were so interested, but then they just don't really want to commit on the call? What do I do then? Skill sets that we need to what's the word? To level up in, to build your capability in. If you put yourself out there, you've done workshops, challenges, you've started creating stuff in your business. In fact, you've done it a couple of times, and they haven't been creating the results you want. And then you just think, fuck, well, what is going to work? And you find yourself looking for the next thing. You're like, maybe it's ads. Maybe I do need to change the platform. Maybe it was my offer after all. No, you haven't learned the skill of troubleshooting or evaluating. And when you're doing those things, are you being held to a standard where it's not victim, it's not kind of indulging in the ego, but actually connecting, being in your belief, being in your power, being who you know you are capable of being and who you have seen glimpses of when you are on fire. Taking those moments and expanding how frequently and how easily and how readily you are able to bring yourself back to them again and again and again. When you do this, quitter energy stops happening, as well as taking quitting off the table, and you become a force to be reckoned with. That is when you know momentum is building. That is when you know and you feel that clients are coming. That is when you see it manifesting. And then, of course, the more that happens, the more you believe it because you start having the evidence. But I work with the coaches who don't have the evidence. So of course it's easy for seven-figure coaches and lap up everything they're saying because they have the evidence and it self-perpetuates constantly. What you need to be doing is working on building your own evidence. And that starts with the internal shift. That starts with taking quitting off the table, not just quitting off the table, but every energy of being a quitter off that fucking table so that you can build the coaching business that you are here to build. All right, I am done. Drop me a DM if that activated you, if you felt that frequency, and if you want more of that, come and work with me. The link is in show notes. And do know that Thrive Group is opening very soon so that we can do this work for 6 months together, and you get all of this energy supporting you to grow your business over the next 6 months and beyond, because you do get lifetime access to the resources. All right, my loves. I hope you enjoyed that. I will speak to you soon, and I'll see you in the next episode.